This is INCRadio DZEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesianicristo.
Lights, camera, cell phones, TVs. Such great inventions nowadays, but what is the greatest invention of all time? And joining me today on INCRadio South Central States to have this conversation and possibly debate, let's say hello to our guest. Nate, let's start with you.
Yes, Nate from Fort Worth. Yeah, I'm looking forward to today. This should be fun. I'm actually kind of scared about what the live chat's probably going to drop, but I think it should make it really, really fun today. So if you're in the live chat, go ahead and drop your own suggestions, whether you're being funny or not.
All right, next to Nate, who do we got?
Renz here from Fort Worth, also excited for today's discussion. Thanks for inviting me. I got way behind when it comes to tech. I'm excited to catch up today.
Very good. And then from another part of Texas, Nico.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nico. I'm from McKinney, Texas. Shout out to my mom and dad. I sent you the link, but I am very excited to talk about tech with all of you guys here today.
All right. So with that being said, I'm just curious to find out if anyone in our chat remembers a time before certain technology was invented. And I want you to kind of like join us in the chat and tell us about it. Because for me, I think one of the greatest inventions is, let's say, a refrigerator, right? Where you could store everything and keep everything. But I do remember, well, I don't remember a time, but I read about a time where they didn't have refrigerators.
Yeah, they had ice boxes where you had to have ice delivered almost every day.
Exactly.
And I think before then, they would like go to some place. They would actually load giant blocks of ice on ships, and then they would bring them, and it would melt along the way, but they would still get, some of the ice, and that was like a thing.
Oh, see, that part I didn't know. So let's talk about the different inventions. And we'll start with the oldest one first, right? The printing press. They say that is the greatest invention of
That's
all
the
time.
oldest one?
Well, what we're going to be talking about, I think that's going to be the oldest one. Oh, well, no. They had other stuff. But the printing press was something that was invented like a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But they did say that is one of the greatest inventions of all time. So you guys agree or disagree?
It's no doubt very impactful because
Yeah.
that pretty much starts like the printing of everything.
Yeah, in their time. I mean, that's a great leap when it comes to, disseminating information.
Yeah, and from what I know, because I majored in communications, that was something that we did have to study. That was the first time that they actually got to mass produce and have communication sent out on a faster way than having it sent through like courses.
Yeah.
Because before they would have to make the writings every single time, or they would have to print it every single time.
Yeah, with like ink and quill, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Were you around during those times, Nico?
Yeah, back in my day.
During the Stone Ages?
Well, just imagine how like information can now reach, more than just one person. Because if you can mass produce things, it's no longer in the hands of just like maybe just some singular person who, would have the ability to obtain, certain writings and recordings.
Yeah, now everything's digital.
Yeah. And that's why I think that's pretty cool, right? Another invention, electricity. Thoughts?
Mhm.
Can you invent electricity?
Yes.
You
It
harness
wasn't.
it. You
I
can,
think it already exists, right?
Okay,
It's just
right.
harnessing
you
it.
harness it. You transfer it, point A to point B.
Yeah, because back then, right, they were using candles and all that for lights.
Mhm.
They didn't have electricity.
There's
Who
also
was
like
it that
who
discovered it?
discovered it.
Or like harness? You know what I mean?
Thor.
I mean, there's like evidence like way back. Thor. There's evidence like back in the day that they invented like primitive batteries, and it uses like acid, and I don't know how the chemistry works, but it's existed for a long time. I seen like a real primitive one where they were stacking like copper plates and they stick it in salt water, and they're like, ooh, it kind of tingles when you touch it. Like they've just figured that out. I don't think they did anything with it because you wouldn't have any appliances back then.
Back
No.
then, yeah, yeah.
But to answer your question, it is somebody on our who's on our $100 bill.
Oh, Ben Franklin.
Ben
Ben.
Franklin.
Was
Frank
it the
Franklin
one with
is
the
Was it him or was
with
it
the kite
Edison?
and the kite and
Franklin.
key?
It was Franklin.
Yeah.
It was
He's
a
the
kite
guy
and
with
key,
the
right?
key.
Yeah.
Thomas.
And is that how he did it, right? Is that how he invented the electricity, was through that kite?
Oh.
I think
He
it was like during a storm or something that
He discovered that electricity hurts.
yeah. Yeah. It was a
See,
very
but-
shocking discovery.
No pun
Yes.
intended.
Well, see, he discovered it in 1752 where that kite experiment where it says that lightning was some type of form of electricity.
Mhm.
But can you imagine if that's the only way we get electricity nowadays? Do you know how hurtful that would be?
It's like, oh, there's a storm. Turn on the TV. You can finally watch. What's interesting about electricity, though, is that I think it was Edison. Okay, he came up with using direct current. There's two main currents that they use: direct current, which we still use now in the form of batteries, and there's alternating current, which is the stuff that comes out of the outlets. And Edison was a big proponent of direct current, and the way he was proving it, he was actually herding animals to prove that alternating current was dangerous. It was alternating current was more powerful, right? But yeah, it could be more dangerous. So he ended up losing that, of course, eventually. So that's why we have AC, alternating current, instead of DC. I think that was Tesla versus Edison. It's a very fascinating, like, if you want to do a deep dive into like Wikipedia, you can track through that history. It's interesting.
Yeah. And then also, I think to go along with electricity is a light bulb, right? Can you imagine if we didn't have light?
Yeah,
Oh,
we
yeah.
didn't have this.
No, everything
It'll
would
be
still be
dark here.
candlelight.
Well, yeah, your day would end at like 6 p.m. every day. Like, oh, I guess it's 6 p.m. Time to go to bed. I can't see anything.
Well, you could have candles.
What are candles made of? Do you know?
Wax?
Yeah, well, what is wax made of?
I don't know.
Wax,
Wax is made of wax. It comes from the
wax is made
tree.
of wax.
Diving deep down to the rabbit hole.
Because I think like some of these tech inventions, I know with like when they discovered that they can process petroleum
Uh-huh.
into
Mhm.
oil, it essentially saved the whales. Because before they were getting the oil from whales and they were whaling, and like the oil industry ended that.
Mm.
And now we're in a position where they're trying to like end the oil industry and move on to something else. But I think that's something interesting about tech innovations is how whenever something is invented and used, like old tech dies away, whether good or not. Like with the computer, we don't have typewriters anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite obsolete already.
But I think those typewriters were pretty cool. But you know what? Rome did put something in here in the chat where he said they powered the first light bulb with a potato. I thought
With
that
a
is.
potato.
I think
thought
that is
that was a
pretty
myth.
interesting.
I thought that was.
I
Well,
think
I
that
don't
was
know
a
if it
science
is or
fair
not.
project. I thought that was just a science fair project.
Yeah, you always see that one science fair project where you have somebody rigging a light bulb to a potato.
I don't know, but that's what he said. So I'm going to believe him for now. Unless someone can prove otherwise, right?
It's the carbs,
Time
probably.
to buy a bunch of potatoes to lower our bill.
Start a potato farm and start wiring it together.
We'll see if that works. We'll see if that works. But if you guys have any ideas of what you guys think the greatest invention is, please put that in our chat or share with us what your thoughts are on the different things that we are talking about. What about you, Nate? What do you think what do you think is the greatest invention of all time?
Gasoline.
Gasoline?
Yeah.
Why?
Just the ability to travel around the world now without having to rely on like wind, right? So just the process of petroleum. I mean, I think that's for now, right? Has been the most beneficial advancement because I like driving and the ability to travel. I mean, just think about whenever you pull crops out of the ground, right? Let's think basically. And you want to bring that to town. Typically, they had to bring that by horseback. right? Well, now you can just load that into a car. There's so much energy stored in like gasoline, and then you can use that to travel. And just think, on average, you could probably travel 500 miles on like 30 bucks, right? And what is 30 bucks? I mean, you think
Hmm.
about like your wages, that's probably like an hour or two of work would give you about 30 bucks for some people's pay. Imagine telling that someone like way back in the day, right? Like, hey, you can travel 500 miles if you work for 2 hours. Like, that would just blow their minds that they could do that. So that's why I think gasoline is probably the one of the most important tech innovations.
I agree it's important. I think that's yeah, because back then, Nico, in your days, you were traveling by horses. Is that what it was?
Yes, even
Horse
even
and
now,
carriage.
up in McKinney, we do horse and carriage still. That's
Oh, do you really?
I mean, it is
no,
tech.
no.
It is
That
Texas after
that's
all.
true, huh? It is Texas.
Yeah, we still get around by horse here.
What about you, Renz? What do you think is? I mean, what do you consider as the greatest invention?
For me, television, right? Because we're someone that we like to always visualize something or to be entertained. And I think we've come a long way when it comes to not just basic TV, but what it can do, right? What it can provide. And, we observe other people and even us. There's old people, younger generations. There's no one that we can even think of that doesn't consume content out of a screen, basically a screen,
Do you think
right?
more so than radio?
Yes,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Well, I don't know. For me, I think I listen to the radio more than I do TV because I think I'm in the car more than I am in front of a TV.
Hmm.
Usually have YouTube on in the background. I'm not watching it, but
Just
I usually
listening.
have
Yeah.
YouTube, yeah, on listening to like
Be
podcasts.
safe out
So
there.
that is kind of like TV.
Yeah.
But you know what? I like something out of the radio, audio dramas. Have you ever listened to some audio
I
dramas?
used to, yeah, like audiobooks, audio
Yeah.
dramas. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Audio
mean,
Yeah.
not
dramas are
just
a thing.
narration, not just narration, but it really has sound effects that
Yeah. It's like a movie just without the picture almost.
without the picture.
Yeah, and since they're limited by what you can see, everything has to be very descriptive. The
It's
sounds have to
entertaining.
be,
It's
Huh.
entertaining.
yeah.
That's a
I've never.
thing.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
never listened to that.
That's very old school though.
No, there are other audio dramas nowadays. They're making it a thing. They're
Mm.
they're casting very uh, very big actors actresses to voice over the characters. You should search some. It's entertaining.
I always thought it was funny how they used to talk on radio back in the day. They're like, "Welcome to INC Radio." They used to have
Oh,
that
yeah.
weird accent when they would talk.
More quirky, the better.
Well, because they had to be animated. They can't see them. They can't see their facial expressions. They can't see any of that stuff. So it has to come out in your voice.
Yeah.
Because if you're just going to be monotone, who's going to listen to you, right? So they had to do that. What about you, Nico? What do you think is what do you consider as the greatest invention?
If we're talking about greatest invention, like we talking about the goat of all inventions, the wheel, 100%. Because without the wheel, right? Like what Nate was saying about gasoline, there's no cars without a wheel. I mean, sure, the wheel back in my time, but at the same time, it's like, but without the wheel, I heard or read about this is that they built the pyramids up in Egypt, down in Egypt, with basically like little carts, and that's how they were able to build all those bricks from the ground up, right? But if we're talking about the last 120 years or so, I saw in the chat, I think definitely the smartphone, because imagine telling like your elementary or middle school self, hey, guess what? You have a flashlight, you have Google, you have a book, you have an MP3 player, you have a phone in your pocket, all in one device. Come on, right? It just
Basically, a
has
Swiss
to be.
knife.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
that's
I
what's nice.
remember on the television, which is what this guy brought up, that the pyramids were built by little green creatures from outer space.
You remember the gesture like this? History.
I don't know about that one. Oh, wait, hold on. So we do have people chiming in what their greatest invention of all time is. And we got Jeff, all the way out there from New Jersey. He said the greatest invention of all time is fried chicken.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for joining us here today. We're going to
Yes.
close on that note.
Well, you guys hungry already?
Nobody's debating that. Yes.
Fried
Who,
chicken.
who would have think that it can be coated with something?
When they discovered the perfect 11 herbs and spices. Yes, life-changing.
Yeah. So for me, I think my greatest invention, I would have to say, is the camera. Because yes, like you can do a lot of different things, but the one thing I love about the camera is you can capture a moment in time that you will, if you forget your memory, at least if you see a picture, that's something that you could always remember. So I always thought that the camera was the greatest thing because it can pause like
Yeah.
moments in
Oh,
time.
Rome says you can't have TV without the motion camera.
Yeah.
True.
So yeah, cameras do kind of evolve over time. Now we got cameras in these things.
And everything, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why I like it because like we said, first anyone can use a camera, right? And you can do videos if you would like to, or you can just do still photos. But being able to capture something in time, which like Nico back in your days, I don't know how you remember anything from the Stone Ages, right? But at least now we can do it. And that's what I wanted to see. Like, if anyone here ever got married before the camera was even invented, like, how do you have pictures of your wedding that everybody has now, right?
Time travel.
We can also accurately capture information. So you think about when it was first coming around, and people would travel to far off places, like to remote islands or like to Antarctica. They can now document it and they can show people. It's like, oh yeah, when you reach this part of the world, it's not like an ice wall or it's not like mystical creatures or anything. It's like this is what it is.
Okay. Now here, let's with Oliver Gabentrina. This is what he said. He thinks the greatest invention of all time is the toilet. He said, "Imagine life without them." Agree or disagree?
That is often overlooked, isn't it?
Yeah,
of
if
these
we don't
items.
have that, I can't even.
Because
It's a very underrated.
I mean, sanitation is a thing that and we essentially flush our sanitation with drinking water because it's all the same water piped through your house. But if you think about before then, it's like that waste can accumulate, all sorts of nasty bacteria and stuff. And people would get sick from that. But now we can efficiently, I don't know, this sounds funny, but you package it and send it somewhere else and it gets taken care of somewhere else.
See, but like you said, no one ever thinks about that, right? Like, what did they do back in the day? Just dig a hole?
Yes, they do, and they marked it.
They marked it.
They marked it
Like
so
a
that
minefield.
you wouldn't go there. So you wouldn't go there. And then there was someone, a story from a friend. He told me he didn't mark it, and then when he dug up, it was the last spot where he was.
Okay, how long ago was this? Because
Well, then there's different evolutions of it because we hear about in Roman times it was more of a communal thing, and they would share like a sponge, and I'm like, how did they even do that? Like, what is going on? And they would just dip it in vinegar. I mean, I could just imagine how horrible of an experience that would be.
Okay, but if we're gonna talk about toilets, honestly, if you guys have never been to Japan, I think Japan's got the best toilets ever. I mean, gosh, not only do they have a bidet, they got a dryer. Okay, so you can go and
A
wash yourself
dryer?
and yes, there's
They
a
got a dryer?
dryer. Yes,
Yeah.
and it comes with a seat warmer too.
Yeah, Japan's got the Michael Jordan of toilets.
I think so.
You would fall asleep there.
I wonder how
think
much
so.
learning now happens on the toilet because everyone's on this thing,
I don't know.
on this invention, while they're on that invention,
I don't know.
combining the powers of of these inventions.
There's another one in here that that Alan Warwick had put in where he thought the greatest invention before this one. So he said from a tech perspective, it is a transistor, which I totally agree. But the first one he put in there, sliced bread.
Yeah, because they used to just tear the bread. Just
Same
Yeah,
to you
can
as
you
fried
can you-
chicken.
Yeah, can you imagine
100%.
having like a sandwich with just ripping the bread apart instead of actually having it sliced?
I can, and I have. It's just it's not as presentable, but
We tear the edges still.
yeah.
But yeah, so like we said, everyone's got different favorites that they have, and I guess it's just how you use the technology on whether or not you think it's like the
Yeah.
greatest.
Well, Mel Andres brought something up:
What did he bring up?
the internet.
Okay.
So, what do y'all think? Do you think that is the most impactful? Because you would think that, like, the explosion of information, the accessibility of information now, you can almost learn anything. Before, you had to go to a library and get a book. Now you can just sit on another invention and
Yes.
Not
learn
only go to the
information.
library and look at the book, you had to have like an encyclopedia, which was very expensive and had major volumes
Volumes.
for you to look up stuff.
Right.
And then they would get outdated, right?
Yep.
Because they would add
that
more
info
things.
was locked in.
Yeah. So, I agree. I think the internet is great, like you say, you can get information and stuff, but then it could also be harmful because
Yeah.
now with the internet, like, ooh, everything's like saved somewhere in history where people could look it up.
And everything now can be connected to it. Right? Everything now can be connected to it.
Yeah.
All of your devices, even your appliances.
Yeah.
We just in terms of like communication, like before, whenever you would communicate with someone, you would have to do like a long distance phone call,
Mm-hmm.
and those would get expensive. And now you connect with anybody in the world, essentially for free. I mean, you do pay an internet bill, but it's like a flat rate. But I don't think a lot of people remember those times where you had to like call long distance.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
And we had to limit with how long we could talk. Like we could not talk forever. It's like,
Yep.
hey, meet me here, that's it, and then just hang up.
And now we're connected to multiple people right now and having a conversation.
And even just the evolution of the internet. Who here remembers dial-up?
Yeah, I remember dial-up. I remember the whole song.
We
and
had it
stuff.
in our old house.
Yeah. But the thing was, if you only had one phone line and someone was on the phone, you couldn't even get on the internet because of it was the same line, right? But do you also remember when it dialed, where it was taking forever before it would
Yep.
connect?
It would have its own little song and dance routine.
Yeah.
Like you'd memorize it, all the noises it would make.
Yes, that is so true.
You're like, is that really necessary? Come on. Do you have to make all these noises?
And even back then, I don't think that dial-up was capable of transmitting as much stuff that the internet is capable of now.
Yeah. Well, one thing about the internet too to consider is how information tends to accumulate in one space, then also tends to like break apart. What I'm trying to get at is like I think Facebook, another tech innovation, has consolidated a lot of the internet. Because if you remember before Facebook, whenever you would have your own website, remember you would have to build individual websites.
Mhm.
But now everything just goes through like these accumulation sites like Facebook, where if you're going to start a business, you're going to start a business page on Facebook versus opening your own website, which is good and bad because you don't know if Facebook's going to decide like they don't want you on your platform because there's no way they can monitor and manage it all. And people have experienced that where it's like they would make a decision on something and a whole bunch of people would be affected accidentally. So
Do they get charged for that? I mean, doing
think you can-
business things.
I think you can pay to, have your page promoted or not.
Mhm. Oh,
Yeah.
so they would promote it more.
Right. Well, that's the thing. So with all this information and businesses on Facebook, Facebook is just one company. And if that company goes down, that is a big chunk of the internet that goes with it.
Yeah.
A lot of information, a lot of people sharing their ideas, because a lot of the forums are actually dying off. Whenever you try to like if you're a car guy and you look up on a car forum, you'll notice a lot of the entries are from like 10 years ago.
Oh, I remember
before
that.
Facebook was a thing.
Forum things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Forums had a lot of knowledge and wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, a lot of the forums started migrating to Facebook. A lot of the forums, their entries just say, just Google it.
Yeah.
But when you Google it, it just points you back to another forum.
To their forum.
Right. So there's this problem with the internet where it's like, yeah, it's all this information, but is it really going to sustain itself when it's been accumulating in certain spots and then that can go away?
But now, sorry. But now when you Google, I mean, they already have their AI, their meta.
Yes.
Yep. But the
Yeah.
AI, if you read it, it's reading the forum posts. Because I remember asking it questions. I'm like, I remember reading that answer on a forum. And this is all it's doing is just searching the internet and then just giving me whatever it's finding. If I were to
Just-
spend like half an hour.
Putting it
searching.
together.
Yes.
Yeah. And Leah Direct didn't say in here like you could ask Google everything, which is so true.
Mhm.
I always have
know?
to yell. And I never feel like it hears me.
Oh. Or sometimes if you have an accent, I don't think it hears you well. Where
I'm always like, okay, Google. Okay, Google. Okay, Google. And it finally
Okay.
hears me. Oh, here, it finally heard me on my phone.
Chat, be honest. Who goes to the second page of their Google search?
I know.
Because you're not convinced with its answers.
No, usually we're the first one. No, but you know what, Nate? Just like you just showed your phone right now, it's so true. Like, if I'm in my car and then one of the commercials it says, oh, ask Google to do this. All of a sudden, the Google in my car turns
Yeah.
on
I
and
think
is trying to pick that up, and I'm like, no, I don't want that. I want to keep listening to my music.
I think everyone's phones are going crazy right now.
Yeah.
Be like, Alexa, what's the weather? Some people are getting the weather report now.
Yeah. I don't like those things though, but that's okay. But before we continue, let's go to our first thinking cap because we gotta make sure people get their prizes, and then later we'll tell you who won for the month of March. Okay, but for our first question, the printing press is considered as the greatest invention of all time. Around when was it invented? I don't know if anybody's been around that long, but was it A, 1350, B, 1400, C, 1450, or D, 1500? Don't forget when you put it in the chat, only put in A, B, C, or D. Don't have to type out the actual answer. And then at the end of the month, we'll tally up all the scores and see who wins. So once again, the printing press is considered as the greatest invention of all time. Around when was it invented? A, 1350, B, 1400, C, 1450, and D, 1500. All right, so we'll give them time to answer that. Let's go with our next one. The telegraph or the telephone. Agree, disagree? Good invention, bad?
That is very impactful because you don't have the internet without it. Because the telegraph is transmitting, electrical information. I think it was just Morse code. Beep, 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 right? That they would send like telegraphs and then they would have to decode it. I think that's how it worked.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is they actually run those lines under the ocean. That's what blows my mind. They have actual lines of transmission going under the sea.
How are they able to do that? Like put the lines
Set it up.
under the-
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they have like ships and they're just dropping that line.
Oh.
I see.
And what's interesting is like countries will like send a submarine and tap into that line so they can spy on the transmission of the signals.
The Johnson family put something in the chat. It says, I'm only in my 30s, and I remember thinking it was so cool to be able to talk to my friends on a cordless phone. And now my kids talk to their friends playing video games together through an iPad. See, and that's so true. I don't know if you guys remember. I didn't have the phone where you had to crank. That I don't remember that, okay? But
You have to call the operator first.
yeah. See, but I do remember the rotary phone. Do you guys remember that?
I remember
Where
that.
you had to, that's how you had to
Rotated,
dial. And I'm like, okay. And then when the push button phone came out, I'm like, oh, this is so much easier, right?
Yeah, remember the cords on those phones?
Yes.
They would make them extra long.
If
case
if
you
you were
needed to walk
lucky,
away,
if you were
yeah.
lucky enough to have it extra long.
And those are also the inventions to like attach to your phone so you can like rest it on your phone.
Yes. Yes.
Because that was the thing. Like people will do this when they say call me.
Uh-huh.
But typically when people are calling each other, it's more of like this on speaker.
So now it is,
Yeah.
but back in the days, you did have to put something,
Yep.
right? But
I
Nico,
remember
what phone generation did you encounter when you were growing up?
The earliest one was the phone with the cord that looked like ramen noodles.
Yeah, the
It's the
spiral
one- yeah.
cords.
A
Yeah, the
spiral.
spiral cord. It was definitely that one. And I
But
remember
was it the push button or was it the rotary?
it was the push button. I think that was the first one that I encountered growing up.
I remember
So-
like calling my friends and my friends knew how to play songs using those tones. I always thought that was
Oh, see, that I don't know.
Oh, you remember
Oh yeah, with the
the,
different
they were all
different
different
keys.
Nokia where you can compose your own ringtone?
I did not know that.
I did not
you
know
can
that
compose
either.
your own ringtone.
I d-
would've
I-
had a
I did not
blast
know
with
that.
Yeah, I would have had a blast with that.
Yeah. But telephone has come a long way. Like you said, started off with a telegraph and then now it's just like in the palm of your hands.
Ubiquitous.
Yeah. That's why and I think it's great because back in the days, I remember we had to write letters because you said long distance phone calls were expensive.
Right.
So when we wrote letters, it wasn't an email, it wasn't a text. It was literally writing on a piece of paper, putting a stamp on it, and waiting a week before you hear back from anybody, right?
I'm sure we got ham radio guys listening now. Like, oh, we've been communicating for free this whole time. Ham radio, and they never go down.
That's true. See,
Yeah.
I used to be licensed for a ham radio, but I gave that up. But yeah, but that's how you can see how communication has evolved so quickly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, communication could definitely be considered one of the most important innovations. Just transmission of information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Another invention, the airplane.
Ooh, I know that's your.
That
your
is that
alley.
is my favorite. That
That's
is my
your
favorite.
favorite.
And but can you imagine if you wanted to go somewhere halfway across the world, you'd have to get on a boat and then
Yeah.
it would take you forever. And then you might even contract some kind of disease, right?
Mhm.
See, at least on the plane, you can get there within like, a few hours.
Especially way back in the day when they were traveling by sail.
Yes.
You know what the horse latitudes are?
No.
Okay, so there are I think it's longitude, right? No, latitude.
Latitude.
It's a set of latitudes that where you travel between it and the weather patterns kind of die off and you get no wind. Okay. And when the boats would end up in the horse latitudes, they would panic. They would start throwing the horses overboard, trying to lighten the ships to get going again. So yeah, that brings up back to your point. Like they used to have to travel around continents, like if they wanted to go from like Europe to India, and who knows what was going along the way. Weather,
Mhm.
pirates. Like pirates was a real thing. We always think like pirates is like some kind of pop culture thing. But like no, those were
No.
real people traveling the seas and just like robbing people.
They're still real now.
They are.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
are. They
Yeah.
still
Yep.
are.
They're not like your "Arr, matey," they're,
Mhm.
No, you're not gonna get
they're Somalians in speedboats.
Yeah, no, that's right. And even just the evolution of the airplane
Yep.
has evolved so much. I'm still at awe thinking how can this thing that is so massive and so heavy, how does it fly?
Mhm.
Gasoline, that goes back to my invention.
Wheel.
And
So
the
you
wheel.
can take off.
It's the wheel.
Well,
It's
there's
the wheel.
planes that can take off without a wheel. So, yeah,
It
that kind of
hovers.
shoots down Nico's greatest invention of the
I mean,
wheel.
Suppose.
It's like,
I mean, there's
why
also
roll when
drones
you can
too.
lift?
But
You're right.
Renz, can you imagine coming here from the Philippines in a boat?
No,
Right? Do you
Well-
see how convenient the plane was for you to get here?
plane like 17 hours with a layover, and you're gonna convert that to boat. No.
Yeah. Especially when you got crying kids right in the plane
Yeah.
and everything. So that's why I love the plane. I think it's one of the greatest things. You're able to go visit family, friends, who knows in what parts of the world, right?
I also
long as
read
the-
something, Arnie, that since the plane was invented in early 1900s, right? Only
Mhm.
60 years later, they were able to bring people to the moon. That's just
Mhm.
wild to me. So
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool.
Well, that's a whole nother gravity thing.
That's how
you know?
fast that technology
Yeah.
advanced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not even a century, right?
Yeah, not even a
Not
century.
even a
Yep.
century.
Yeah. And if you look how small the old planes used to be, where it could only hold like either one or two people, and that was it.
Yeah.
Compared to now, where you can have one that can hold like up to 300-400 people at a time. I think
Yeah.
that's just the coolest thing.
You could think about the printing press, which, prints like all the information on how to fly a plane, just the progress of, knowledge throughout the world.
And as great as planes are, Alan Work did put in there, but without boats, we could not send Balikbayan boxes to the Philippines.
It'd be expensive.
They
to
yeah,
fly
they
it.
still use
Do they
big
really
cargo
still use
ships.
boats for those?
Yeah.
For cargo. Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah, that
Cut
is
the costs.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But you see those, like if you go down like a TikTok rabbit hole of like ships crossing the oceans, like they have to go through like giant waves, and every now and then you'll see your cargo box like falling off the ship, and it's like, oh, that's my Amazon delivery that's now delayed at the bottom of the ocean.
And then another thing, what about antibiotics? I didn't even think of that as an
Medicine.
invention.
Medicine.
Yeah,
You know?
medicine. We do take that for granted
Yeah.
because like people used to die from infections.
Yeah, like that. Now you can just take something for now.
Yep.
Mhm.
Like you cut your finger and then you're not here tomorrow because the infection just happened to spread that
Yeah.
quickly. Whereas like now you can just go to the store and put a little ointment on it and go about your day.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And now it's like it doesn't like well now they're coming up with different things to cure different diseases as
Mhm.
opposed to before, like you said, it was just good luck.
Mhm.
Yeah. But at the same time, like some medicines are also promoting like bad health, like letting you get away with unhealthy habits and whatnot.
And you know that's so true because like my mom, she's diabetic and she thinks, oh, it's okay, I'm taking my meds, I could still drink soda like nothing.
It's a
And so,
very unhealthy mindset because I'm also diabetic and I think, oh, I can just take my insulin. Let me drink this can of soda real quick.
see,
So
see, with me, I'm diabetic too, but I've learned that yes, this medicine's gonna help me, but I'm not gonna abuse it, right? Unless, of course, it comes to dessert. That's the only thing. But other than that, I try to still, because medicine is helpful, but we can't like that make it,
Yeah.
controversy where you're
Rely
gonna
on it too much.
exactly, yeah,
And you know what? I'm not in that medical field, but aside from medicines, what fascinates me when you go to a hospital, especially here in the U.S., the technology in the
yes,
hospital. Imagine a profession that is their sole work is to operate those things.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
yeah. Because it even just like let's say taking your blood pressure, right? I remember back in the days they had to have a stethoscope and then they got to listen to things
Hmm.
and then they got to pump that thing and and I'm like, okay, how does that work? Now you just stick your arm in something and just leave it there and the machine
There's
automatically
a
does it for
kiosk
you.
for that.
Yeah.
There's a
Right?
kiosk.
There's a
No,
kiosk for your
there
blood.
is. There is.
I remember in the Philippines, there's a drugstore. They have a kiosk for that. You
Yeah.
just put a quarter or something.
Yeah.
When we were kids, that was more of like the pain tolerance game. It's like how much can you handle before you tapped out and hit the button?
Yeah. No, seriously. So yeah, things have evolved, great technology and stuff like that. And then of course, computers is considered
Oh, yeah.
The computer.
an
Yep.
There's for
invention.
work, there's for games,
Yep.
there's for editing.
That's true though, because remember when the computer first came out, it
I
wasn't.
don't tell us, Arnie, when it first came
I will
out.
tell you when it first came out.
The big box
Hold
thing.
on, hold on. I got to think about it.
That filled the room.
No, first of all, it was massive, right?
Uh,
And like I remember the first personal computer, it was big. I didn't have one personally because we couldn't afford it, so we had to go to our friend's house and everything. But it was you had to type in commands for it to be able to do things.
mhm.
Yep.
Now you just click, right? And back then, like the monitors were so small, like you could barely see anything. But yeah,
It almost sounds like though it's not the computer, but it's like executable scripts and programs
Mhm.
that made the computer actually accessible. Because yeah,
yeah,
you're right. You would have to type in every single instruction for the computer,
yes,
and you would have to get it exactly right, otherwise it wouldn't work. Versus nowadays, you're like, well, let me just double click this icon,
yes.
and it just points to a whole bunch of that code already written.
And so I do remember the first video game I ever played on a computer. It wasn't really a video game. It was a story saying, "Hey, this is what's going on. What are you going to do?" And you had to type it out. Oh,
Yep.
I'm going to go to that room, and then the computer would says you can't, where you have to give it specific instructions. Okay, I'm going to turn the knob first. Okay, good job. And then says, now I'm going to open the door. And then they say, good job.
That
You know,
sounds like multiple choice wasn't invented yet.
no, it wasn't. It wasn't. And if you didn't give it the right command, you wouldn't be able to enter that room. But nowadays, where you just click on the door, it opens, and you're in the next room, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I think like you said, how they code it
Yeah, I
and
would
they
say like
program it.
executable scripts probably is more
Logic
important
game.
than the computer. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that. I just know a computer's a computer, and that's all it is, right? Nico, did you have computers your whole life?
yes, we had one family computer growing up, but it was really I can't really complain of how slow it was because it was an Intel Core Duo. So it was, I mean, it worked. It worked, right? But now I have at least like three or four at home right now. So yeah, pretty much growing up, I've always been having a computer, but it's like a hybrid use. So like all the computer was used for games, work, homework, just all in one essentially. So
And technically, you don't even need a computer anymore. Technically, everything's on the cell phones now,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, it is a type of computer.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially, yeah. You can pretty much do everything, sometimes even better
Mm-hmm.
on a phone. I know some like picture editing software and video editing software is just so much easier to use on a phone, even though it's not as powerful as like a desktop. It's just way more accessible to do like basic things.
Yeah. All right. Before we continue, we got to go. I forgot. We still have another two more thinking caps we got to ask. So let's go to our number 2 thinking cap, our second thinking cap question. All right. What company invented the first mobile phone, which was nicknamed as the brick? Okay. First company to invent a mobile phone. We're not saying it's the best, but it is the first one. So is it E, Nokia, F, Motorola, G, Samsung, or H, Apple? So go ahead and put in there E, F, G, or H. E for Nokia, F for Motorola, G for Samsung, or H for Apple. Who invented the first mobile phone? Okay.
It was called the brick.
It was called the brick because it was so big and heavy.
Are we sure it's not Acme?
No. It was called the brick. It was called the brick.
Because
But
it's indestructible.
All right. Okay, what else?
Well, what was your first cell phone?
Mine was it was a phone if I remember. I think it was a flip phone.
Yeah, I think it was like, I remember back then it was like, do you want flip phone or do you want candy bar style?
What's candy bar? Oh, like yeah. No,
Where
ours was flip phone.
It's like the brick. The answer.
And you know, back in the days, your parents weren't buying you your cell phones. If you wanted a cell phone, you had to save money and buy your own cell phone.
Yeah. And
You
there were
know?
minutes, right?
Yeah.
Remember the minutes? And
Yes.
You had to wait till 7 p.m.
But back then, also, cell phones weren't like $1,000.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
true.
it was pretty reasonable where you could save up money to buy it. Nowadays, it's like you got to put it on a plan. You can't even pay for it. It's already outdated, and you're still paying for it, right?
You remember when it was still on a keypad?
Yeah.
It takes skill to type
Yeah.
when you're not looking at it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like A was just you
One
press it
time,
once.
yeah.
B you had to press it twice.
Yes.
But
Oh,
you could text though, like in your pocket though.
Yeah,
That was
you
the
can
advantage
text.
of that.
Without looking. I know some people they can text without looking.
Yeah.
It takes skill.
yeah. I wasn't good at that, so I literally just used the cell phone to make phone calls. Because the whole number, I thought that was just too much. But hey, to go along with that, remember the pagers?
I don't.
You weren't around with a pager?
I encountered it, but where I was living, it wasn't very prolific. Like not a whole lot of people had it. And that was like when I was in school, so there weren't a whole lot of kids that were carrying pagers.
Yeah, ours it was only the rich kid who had pagers. But you know, even for businesses, I knew a lot of business people who had
How did that
pagers.
work? How did you send a message to a pager?
So you would call like a number.
Yeah.
And then it says, okay, put in whatever number you want them to call, and you type in your phone number, and then when you hang up, it would send that page to someone's pager, and then the only thing you would be able to see was that phone number. But people got creative, and they started using like the numbers to send a message. Like if you wanted to send hello, you would do the 4, the 3, the 7, the 7, and the 0, because upside down,
say hello.
it's hello. And so, you know, but you're limited because you're limited with how many numbers you could have. But people were creative because, you know, they would do 8008, which I'm not going to say what
Well, that was like the calling collect trick.
Yes.
When you would so back in the day, you can call collect where you would charge the person you were calling
Yes.
instead of yourself. Well, what we used to do is like let's say you wanted to get together with friends, you would call your friend collect, and when it asked for your name, you'd be like, hey, my name is, meet me at the movie theater at 7 p.m. So that when they would receive the call, it would say, receiving a call from, hello, meet me at the movie theater at 7 p.m. Do you want to accept? And you would just hang up after that. And then you would know, that, okay, I'm going to meet him there.
Yes.
And the call would be free.
But you had to do it fast because you didn't have like unlimited time of what you could say.
But it would just like record your voice and then play it back to them. We would just send each other voice messages that way back and forth.
Yeah, not like now. Now you could send voice messages to everybody. But yeah, see, those were the good old days.
But people are always like trying to hack technology that way. Just like you said, they hack the pager, they hack collect calling.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, and like we said, they had to make it shorter. Okay, and then of course one of the most popular innovations, smartphones.
Yeah, just an iteration of pretty much it. It's almost like an accumulation of everything we've been talking about while you sit on the toilet.
Anywhere, yeah. Because even on the planes now, you could still use your smartphones, you know?
So airplane mode's not really a thing anymore.
No, I mean, like you would still be on airplane mode, but you can log into the Wi-Fi and still use your cell phones
Yeah.
on the plane.
I remember the first time I saw airplane mode, I was like, "What is that?" on
Yeah.
my phone.
What is that for?
Yeah.
But Nico, have you lived a life without a smartphone?
Yeah, so my first phone, I got it. What year was that? Maybe 11, 12 years ago. It was a smartphone. Funny enough, my sister got upset at me because her first one was the QWERTY phone where like you have to slide it. It's a mini keyboard, right? And then she was like, "Mom, how come Nico gets a smartphone first?" But it wasn't even an iPhone. It wasn't even an iPhone either. It was an Android, right? And then it included a tablet. So I think it was like a pad phone. That's what they called it, where it was a smartphone, but when you slide it on the back, it's basically a tablet in itself.
I missed.
I thought that.
Pad.
Yeah, the keypad was pretty nice, but
Yeah, I want that back. I can never type correctly
Yeah,
on a
the-
phone anymore.
The jellies.
That's right, because like when they had like the Blackberries, remember it
Oh,
had the whole thing
Blackberries.
where you could do that. I remember the Blackberry was like so popular where
Mhm.
that's what everybody was using.
I'm starting to think autocorrect is like the worst invention of all time. It is always
Oh, that's
wrong,
so true.
making me
Oh,
sound dumb. I'm like, I did not type that. What are you doing?
That's true.
Why
and
did
then,
you correct what was already correct?
And then especially when you're trying to type in like people's names and everything, it would autocorrect that.
Yeah.
Or if you try to type words in foreign languages,
Yeah.
it would try to do. And I'm like, no, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. Yeah. What do you guys think is an invention you guys don't like?
Yeah, autocorrect is definitely one.
Autocorrect, and then also the option that it extends what you're saying. Right?
Oh, the
Yeah.
auto
Like predictive-
populate.
Yeah, the predictive typing. I think
Yeah.
that's
So
what
he's
it's
trying
called,
to guess. He's trying to complete your words like it's in a committed
He's
relationship with
trying
you.
to read my mind.
Yeah. See, that's yeah. Okay, let's go because we're running out of time. Let's go to our third thinking cap question because we still have to see who won from last month. And yeah, I thought this was a fun one. Okay, so which Italian Renaissance artist is credited for inventing scissors? Is it Michelangelo, Raphael, Leonardo, or Donatello? Do you guys
Put it in the
Ninja
wrong
Turtle.
order. It's
Which Ninja
Leonardo,
Turtle?
Donatello.
It's gotta be
Michelangelo,
Raphael. You know his weapons looks like scissors, right? It's gotta be him.
You're funny. So yes, J. Michelangelo, K. Raphael, L. Leonardo, and M. Donatello. But did you guys know that the Ninja Turtles were named after these Italian Renaissance artists?
They invented sewer pizza.
They did.
Well learned
I
for
thought the Renaissance artists were named after the Ninja Turtles.
No, no.
Took inspiration from them.
No. Okay, so let's go to our leaderboard. For last month, these are our leaderboard. So Melanie did win. So Nate, you're gonna have to give her a prize. And then Pauline came in close second. And then Oliver came in third. And then now we had Norvi, Fredolin, Mila, Julian, Renz. Renz all the way down there. See, you got to tune in every week, Renz, or else you're not gonna win. You have to tune in every week.
And pretty soon we're going to be switching to our game show.
Yes.
Yeah.
And since, well, you brought that up now, yes, we are looking, they want us to rebrand. And so they want us to come up with a show, and it is going to be a game show. And so what we need now are participants. And think about it because we are willing to go to your places. We are willing to go to Baton Rouge and Jacksonville and where else? El Paso, Kansas. Yes, we will go to those places. So
McKinney.
if you guys can promise us 2 contestants from your city, we will come there. And you know, I do see people here from Madrid is logged on, and hey, I will go to Madrid if you guys can tell. You know, get
we
me
do have the
contestants.
equipment
Yes, we
to
do
get
have
onto a plane.
exactly. And then I also see I have my friend Ferdy who's on, who's from, he's saying UC, something that's, is that Universal City down in
Yes.
lower part of Texas? Yeah, so he's on. So
San Antonio area.
yeah, we can go down there. But yes, that is upcoming. We are looking forward to that, but we just need people to be able to participate.
Yep.
And so, first of all, we just really appreciate everyone who's tuned in and who's always watching us. And so, we do want to have a feature where we're going to feature some of our friends from different parts of our district. And so, we're going to go ahead and start off with our friends in Fort Worth because, it's nearby, so we can do that. And so, the past month, the youth of the church in Fort Worth local, they held a coloring activity, and this activity was helping to promote creativity and focus while reducing stress and anxiety. So maybe this is an activity you guys can all have too. Okay. And then our next one is going to be with Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge was nice enough to have an INC radio watch party. Maybe that's something you guys can do. Invite your friends and family and have them watch our INC radio program along with you. And then Dallas actually went to the Grapevine Sea Life Aquarium, where they introduced the young ones to wonders of aquatic life and explore the various marine creatures and interactive exhibits. If you guys have never been to an aquarium, I highly suggest it. It is so great. It's great for the children, but it's something that they can actually learn something from. So it's pretty cool. And then next, we also have our friends all the way out in El Paso. So, to help maintain their physical health, the families in El Paso participated in a nature hike at the Franklin Mountain State Park. So, being out in nature helped them not only strengthen their physical health, but also their spiritual being by strengthening the brotherhood.
I like how that looks like a Western in the background. This is very much what El Paso is like.
See, but it is. It's nice. I know they sent me another picture where they were like actually up on the mountain and taking pictures from there, and I thought that was really cool. So yes, now's a good time to be outdoors since the weather's great. And last but not least, we always have our folks from Jacksonville who's always tuning in. These are our folks in Jacksonville who had their INC radio watch party. Like we said, we think this is going to be a great idea. Share this with your friends and family, invite them over, watch INC radio all together, and that would be such a great thing. So that's it that we had going on for the month of March. But for all of our friends and families from other places, send us pictures. Let us know what you guys did, and then hopefully we'll be able to feature it in our upcoming episodes. All right. So inventions. What other inventions can we talk about? Because we already talked about like the light bulb, gasoline, and all that stuff. Nuclear power.
Ooh, nuclear power. Yeah, there's a big bang for your buck because there's a lot of energy stored in radioactive things. But in reality, though, nuclear power is actually just steam power.
Okay.
Because all they're doing is just heating up water, making steam. So it's basically just the evolution of the steam.
But why is it
engine.
great?
Just because of the amount of energy stored in radioactive things.
Yeah.
You just have a rock and you're like, ooh, this rock is kind of warm.
Okay, I'm gonna go.
You're gonna get superpowers from it.
Oh, that's true, huh? Who got superpowers from that? Is there a cartoon character? Radioactive man? I don't know.
I'm gonna go sideways. My nuclear reactor, what powers me, is a Keurig.
Oh, Keurig.
Greatest invention.
There's a lot of energy stored in coffee beans.
No, but you know what? That is so true because that's like instant coffee without instant coffee. It's like instantly brewing it.
Yep.
Not like with I don't know if anyone remembers they used to have these I'm trying to remember what they're called now, but they used to be these huge, massive containers, and then that's where your coffee and it would take forever. Like it was drip coffee. It would take forever. It had a spout and everything, but it would take so long just to brew the coffee.
Just need a pod now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a pod and water.
And they get the water temperature and everything down to an exact thing.
Yeah. When I used to be in the office, I used to always use a Keurig for coffee, but now I don't need it too much, so I don't drink coffee too much.
Every now and then I like to do old school and just boil it.
Ooh, Oliver, he put in HVAC. Yes, air conditioning. Where would we be without air conditioning?
Not here. Not
in Texas. That's what we know. Never.
Exactly.
We won't exist.
Actually, I wonder if it is actually a bad thing because there's people who's always lived in warm climates. And I know that like you spend enough time outdoors, your body kind of adjusts. Just like when it gets really cold out, your body will adjust like its blood vessels and whatnot. And you can adjust to those temperatures. It's almost like a bad thing because like you get used to 70-degree weather and then you got to step outside and it's 100. versus like back in the day, maybe you just sit in the shade and your body would just get used to the heat.
Yeah. Okay, so Alan put in something else. Home automation is pretty incredible. I love being able to tell my smart device to adjust the thermostat, lights, etc. You know, I wish I had a smart home where I could do that. Like the only thing I pretty much can do automatically is like setting the alarm, where I could be on my phone and like if I drive a mile away from home and I didn't set my alarm, it
Yeah.
sends me that notification. Hey, set your alarm. I think that is the coolest thing.
I think calling it a smart home implies that there's a dumb home.
Well, that is what they're calling it nowadays, right? But and I've seen it where people have washing machines that they can run off of their cell phones.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I'm like, man, I should have got one of those.
It's pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. 'Cause
Why
we
do you
also
have that?
We have the garage, washer, dryer, the microwave, the oven. I think that's it. Yeah.
See, the garage I have also, which I can open and close from my phone, which I think is cool. But
Mhm.
everything else, I don't.
See, when we bought our new oven, I went to saying no more electronics at all. It's a gas oven.
Yeah.
And there's no electronics at all. It is just all knobs.
Yeah.
Because as great as electronics are, when they break, they really
Yes.
break.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I found out like, no, when it comes to appliances, I just keep them basic now.
Yeah.
I've kind of gone backwards. I have dumb appliances.
Yeah. See, my appliance too. It's I like gas. I don't like the whole electric thing, but it's the knob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like though that my washing machine plays a jingle when it's done. So it's like working out my garage and I hear it playing a song. I was like, oh, that's kind of nice.
Mine's not a song. It's just some noise.
Yeah.
But yeah. But I do like the newer washing machines compared to the ones in the past because you know it would automatically do it. You wouldn't have to think about it. You just put in the settings, right? But yeah.
We're doing the answers.
Oh, that's right. We got to give the answers.
Yeah. Thinking cap.
Let's
one,
go back to
go.
our thinking cap. Okay, so it's closed. You can't put any more answers because now we're going to go the answers. So, Nico, what did you say was the answer to this printing press question? What did you think
My
it was?
my guess was 1450 C.
And your guess is correct. Very good.
Okay, Slay.
Yeah, you're
Nice.
good. Okay, what about the one who was the first company to do the mobile phone? What do you guys think it was?
Nokia is the
Nokia.
Most,
Nokia.
yeah.
Oh, you guys
Got
are
the
wrong.
legend.
And see, and that's why I couldn't say what my cell
Oh,
phone
you
was.
tricked
That's the
us.
brick. That's the
Because-
goat of phones.
Motorola. Motorola was the first company to make a mobile device.
They invented it. Nokia perfected it.
Yes. So my first phone was a Motorola, but I couldn't say it because I didn't want to give out the answer. All right. And then the last one, my Ninja Turtles, right? Who was credited in inventing scissors? Renz, who did you say you thought it was?
Raphael.
You thought it was Raphael because of his weapons,
Yeah.
right? Nico, who do you think it is?
I was gonna go with Raphael too, as what Ren said, because of the
And-
weapons.
No, it's Da Vinci.
It
Da Vinci.
is.
He
It is
invented all sorts of
Leonardo.
stuff, yeah.
And
Oh.
because Leonardo was my favorite Ninja Turtle out of all of them, because he's blue. I like the color blue, so Leonardo was my favorite. But yes, so if you
He's a leader.
guess those answers correctly, then you're going to have 3 points. And at the end of the month, we'll see what the different points are. So I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. Thank you all for joining us. Let's go ahead and have our final shout outs. Nico, you want to give a shout out to anybody?
Yes. Shout out to you guys for having me on. Shout out to my parents for watching. I'll see you guys downstairs after this. I'm ready to eat. Other than that, Yeah.
We're ready to eat too. Can you bring some lunch over here?
yeah, I'll be on the way. I'll let y'all know.
All right, Nate.
I'd like to thank Donatello because he is the actual go to the Ninja Turtles because he had the long stick and when
The
you
tech
played
guy.
when you play the video games you wanted that reach. So shout out to
He's the tech
Donatello,
guy.
the purple Ninja Turtle.
Renz, anyone you want to give a shout out to?
First of all, shout out to my family, especially to my wife, Pauline. I did not forget you this time. Uh, to everyone watching, specifically all the way from the Philippines, a friend of mine, Rosana Ramos, who will be celebrating her birthday this April.
Oh wow, happy birthday.
Advance happy birthday.
Oh yes, I know I did. I'm so happy we do have people from different parts of the world. We have people from the Philippines, California, of course down in lower part of Texas, and then somebody from Madrid was also on. So thank you all so much for tuning in. But as normal, before we end, we do want to say thank you. First of all, to our INC radio station manager, Brother Wally Taray, our CFO coordinator and SEPSI president, Brother Angelo Eranio Manalo, and of course, our executive minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. So thank you all for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you all next week, and we're going to talk about the greatest something of all time. What the something is, I don't know yet, but it will be the greatest of something. Oh, happy birthday to Grayson. Yes, happy birthday, Grayson. I miss you. I had to babysit him last week.
Happy birthday, Grayson.
Adios.
This is INCRadio DZEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo.